Hey y'all, it's Alicia from Glitz and Grits. I'm out here in Waco. I'm at the beautiful Morrow House, so I thought I'd film this Q&A really fast. For any of y'all who have been following me on social media for a while and are not new to this YouTube channel, I'm assuming most of you are new to YouTube because I'm new to YouTube. I took about, 25 questions that I get asked a lot, or I ask people to send me questions, and this was months ago, and I kept saying that I would film a Q&A video, and then I never actually filmed one. Well, I've got a little bit of free time right now, and this house is gorgeous. So I thought I'd answer them really fast. So we'll just start with the first one. Where did your blog name come from? So my blog is Glitz and Grits. For those who don't know, I have a traditional actual blog, not just social media. And it had the tagline, adding a little glitz to your grits. And it's a saying that I heard my grandmother say growing up in the kitchen. Because I started as a food blog, just sharing recipes in different places that I like to eat in Texas and in the South. And it's evolved into more of my Texas travels and lifestyle. So were you born in Texas? Obviously. Can you believe people actually ask me that? Obviously. I was born right outside of Dallas in a suburb, Carrollton. And I grew up in DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth, my entire life. I lived about 5 years in East Texas for college out in Nac. And then I came back after college to the Dallas area. How did you come up with your Southern portraits and how do you pick people? So for those who don't know, I used to do the Southern portraits, kind of like the Humans of New York. I was doing it and then someone sent me Humans of New York and were like, you're kind of doing the same thing as Humans of New York. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Mine was slightly different, but it's kind of cool that people can have kind of the same concept, but take it a totally different way. And how it started is a couple of years ago, I went to my first blog, like conference event thing, and I got to meet a blogger that I really love, her photography. Her name is Rachel from A Southern Fairy Tale. She's like an 8th generation Texan. And I was texting my friends in group text, telling them about it. And one of my friends, we call him 7 because he's a 7th generation Texan. He was like, so I'm a 7th generation Texan. And my great, I don't even remember how many greats. Uncle is one of the founding fathers of Texas. And I was like, that does me no good unless you get famous and have your photography in Southern Living in Texas Monthly or whatever. And then I was like, wait, I can interview you. So that's kind of how it started. Well, the fourth question, what kind of camera do you use? So I'm shooting this right now on my Canon EOS 5 Mark 5D3 or whatever on a 35mm lens. I shoot a lot at 1.4 when I'm taking my photography, but for videos, I'm looking at getting maybe something smaller that will autofocus because this is a pain to put together because this camera's not what people are using for video. But I shoot on my Canon, my Mark D3. And this is a 35mm lens. Number 5, so you just get paid to travel around Texas. How do you pick places to visit? That's a really good question. So this place right here, we're visiting because one of my friends got a free night stay. Old World New, Addie, go follow her blog. She got a free night stay for a night in Waco at the Morrow House, this gorgeous house that's been updated. And so that's how we picked this place. But most of them come from my Traveling Texan list, hashtag Traveling Texan, the bucket list. Some of you may have seen it, some of you may not. It went like, let's just say thousands upon thousands, more than I could even count. Saw it a couple years ago. And it's just a list of some of my, it started with the song, My Texas, Josh Abbott Band featuring Pat Green. I don't think they originally did the song, but that's the version that I love. And they have a song and it's like, if you never, I'm trying to think, never had a clutchy when you go through West, never heard of the Larry Joe Taylor Fest. Well, yeah, I'm singing it wrong. I don't know. Joe Taylor Fest. Never seen a hill country sunset. Think polish pop country sounds the best. Then you ain't met my Texas yet. Never been to the San Antonio Radio. Sing Carry On at a Krager show. No, it's Everclear at a Krager show. Carry On is by Pat Green. Ha! Anyways, you get the point. It came from the song, and that's how my list came together. And I just added more to it until it ended up being like 200 things to do around Texas. So I was like, I've lived here my entire life. At the time when I wrote it, I'm 30 now. I was like 26, I think, or something. And I was like, I've lived here my whole life and haven't done half this stuff. Okay, where do you get all your Texas shirts from? Oh, I'm actually not wearing one right now. I had on one earlier taking some photos. So I'll put some links in the description, but most of my Texas shirts, they're either from Texas Humor, Texas Tumbleweed Styles. I've got some new ones that came from Dallas. It's a new one in Dallas, but I'll put a link because people are always asking me where I get all of my Texas shirts from, but a lot of them are from Texas Tumbleweeds. I've gotten some from Magnolia Market. I bought one at Target. My Mother Effing Texas shirt. I'll have to find the brand. I bought them at a brunch taco festival a couple of months back in Dallas. Okay, number 7, favorite brunch spot in Dallas. Breadwinners, hands down. I know it's basic, but it's a good family brunch where, like, if you don't drink alcohol, that's fine. If you do drink alcohol, that's fine. You can bring your kids. They have kids menu. They have stuff for the kids, like little activity things. Breadwinners, hands down. How do you take your coffee? Lots of cream and a little sugar. Number 10, favorite way to drink tea and my favorite tea brand. Well, I really love Arnold Palmer, but it would have to be Louisiana tea with like no ice and a little bit of lemon. Number 11, sugar or salt in your grits. I can't even believe that's a question. Y'all lost y'all minds. If you put sugar in your grits, there is something wrong with you. That is disgusting. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Why would you put sugar in your grits? That's nasty. Number 12, how did you get started with opportunities? I think people want some like big catch-all secret, and there isn't really. It's just being consistent, producing great quality of work. But I would say the first, y'all, my nose is itching. I'm sorry, I keep like scratching my nose. I would say the first big thing that I got to do was a couple of years ago. I got invited out to, this was like in 2014, 15. Where did I get invited out to? Or maybe it was 2016. I don't know. But the point is, I got invited out to Arkansas, to Helena, Arkansas, to the King Biscuit Time Festival. And it's a blues festival, and that was pretty cool. Especially because I felt like unworthy getting to meet, like, I got to meet, I don't know if he's still alive. I'll have to Google and let you know if he's still alive. But he was a radio DJ, and he still did the King Biscuit Time, and he was the first person to let African Americans on the radio with whites, like, back in the day. And it was really cool. And so there were people who come from all over. They were filming a documentary, and I got interviewed. Like, it was somebody from BBC or something was filming a documentary, and they were there. And so it was just really cool to like get to see people that are making history. And then a lot of y'all know, I've mentioned it, my family on my mom's side comes from the Mississippi, Arkansas Delta area. And so blues music is very prevalent there, and that's where we were, in the Delta area. And so getting to see some of these legends, like we got to see, his last name's Cotton. I don't remember his first name, but he plays the harmonica. He's since passed away about a year ago. And to get to see him up there playing, and like you could see the hard work in his hands, oh my goodness. And then Take the Load Off Annie, that old blues song. I got to meet Annie. She was standing outside the barricade. We were in a VIP area, and people kept trying to talk to her, and she's just dancing, and that song played. And I'm like, why are people? And they were like, that's Annie. That's who the song is about. And someone went and got her and brought her over, and she's like crying. And it was like the last song of the night, and it was really cool to get to like talk to her or whatever. And I was like, that. It was a really cool experience. Okay, number 13. What brings you the most joy? I'm looking at these questions, and it's been forever since I like seen them. Like, I just copied and pasted them to my phone when people sent them. So I'm like, what brings you the most joy? Jesus, sweet tea, grits. What else? Yeah. I've never met a stranger. My mom says I can make a friend with a brick wall. She used to tell me growing up. Favorite place in Texas to visit? That's number 15. El Paso, hands down. I haven't seen all of Texas yet. Obviously, clearly I want to. But El Paso, the people are just the nicest, the friendliest. It's beautiful down there, all the mountains. It's gorgeous. Even in like the Border Patrol and all that. Like, I know a lot of stuff you hear on the news, sometimes it can make you weary of things. But I encourage you to go experience other cultures and places for yourself. Especially in Texas, there's so much culture. And there's so much different identity. Like within one state, like we were making jokes recently. I was just out at the sand dunes. And my friend was like, sand dunes? We have sand dunes in Texas? And I was like, girl, we got everything in Texas. We got beaches. We got mountains. Most people don't know we have mountains. We do. We have beaches, we have mountains, we have the lakes and prairies where I live. You got the Panhandle, you have the sand dunes, you have the piney woods where I lived for a little while. Like, and we have all the different weathers. Like, it's just gorgeous down there. And I love the people and the food. Number 16, favorite singer, Ashton Shepherd, hands down. If you don't know who she is, go Google her. Like, oh my Jesus, just that voice. Lauren Elena would be a close second. They're both country artists, but Ashton Shepherd, hands down. Number 17, anywhere besides Texas, where would you go? Country and state. For state, I want to go to Alaska. I think my mom's going in like 3 years for her 60th birthday, and I'm trying to tag along with some of her friends. And if I was talking about going out of the country, I really want to go to Norway, Ireland, or Iceland. I could be content just staying in Texas for the rest of my life. But those 3 countries are probably like top of my list: Norway, Iceland, and Ireland. Number 18, do you consider Texas a part of the South? What kind of question is that? Yes. I know some people say Texas is its own thing, and it's its own thing, and you can all go to hell, I'm going to Texas. But like, for some of you people, like, I've not really gotten in arguments, but I've had Southern people be like, Texas is not really a part of the South. Your state didn't even have to succeed. You want to know something that really like burns my biscuit butter, like that old saying? It's when people are like, I live south of the Mason-Dixon line. They're talking about the South. Technically, the Mason-Dixon line goes from like Pennsylvania to Maryland. So unless you live up there on the East Coast, like Pennsylvania, Maryland, no. I mean, you could no. If you're in Alabama, you do not live south of the Mason-Dixon line, sweetie. Like that, as someone with my history degree, it just burns me when people, like, it annoys me. Oh my gosh, learn your history, learn your geography. Number 19, what made you start blogging and vlogging? So a couple of years ago, it's been more than a couple now. I told somebody a couple of years ago, and this girl was like, girl, you've been out of college now for like 7 years. And I was like, oh my gosh. But I was out of college and I was home just applying for jobs. And I just started sharing recipes and like things that I was cooking on Facebook. And I think literally the album was titled I'm a Domestic Hobo or something like that. Something just stupid and ignorant. And then someone was like, you should start a blog and we'll read it. And now I realize, no, you're just retired of seeing all of my poorly lit, poorly put together photos of the things I was making, but that's how it started. No big fancy secret. 20, how do you schedule and maintain your blog? That's a good question, something I need to get better at. I should be editing a video right now that needs to go up tonight about my time on the Hempstead farm. By the time this goes up, you already have seen the video of the Hempstead farm. But I just started bullet journaling not too long ago, and that's pretty much what I do when I can keep up with it. 21, what feeds your soul and makes you smile? Who asked this question? If you're watching this video, who asked this question? What feeds your soul and makes you smile? Well, Jesus. Sweet tea, grits. I feel like that's so basic. Traveling around Texas, getting to meet people. Pretty much. What's your favorite thing about being a Texan lady? My favorite thing about being a Texan lady. Somebody really asked me that. Y'all, it's been a while since I looked at these questions. They've been sitting on my phone for months, so I don't. My favorite thing about being a Texan lady. Probably the culture, the history, the camaraderie. I don't know, I feel like there's this special, like, what's the word? Like, woman, not even womanhood, but like, when you meet other Southern ladies, it's like this, I don't even want to say culture, but it's like you're a part of a secret club where we all just get it. Like, I was making jokes, I'm in junior league, and I had applied for something, and I was making a joke about how every junior league lady should know how to make a casserole out of nothing and whip up a cake. And then I was like, I kid, but my grandma would clutch her pearls if I said that. But I don't know, I think it's just the culture and the traditions that Southern women seem to want to pass down. Like, it's very, like, I know it can get a lot of flack because people can think that you need to come into the new century or whatever, and that women should be able to do whatever they want. But I don't know, there's just something great about how it seems more prevalent, I guess, compared to some, like, and I'm not saying they don't have this elsewhere, but compared to especially being in Dallas Junior League, where we get a lot of ladies who are not originally from Texas or from the South, where Junior League is really popular. And so they join to make other friends, and we'll talk, and I talk about how I've had some of the same friends my entire life, and like such and such twice removed will still be in your wedding, and you will send her a thank you note. And I think it's just the culture and some of the traditions that I just love. 23, what are your top 10 Texan necessities? Things every true Texan needs in their lives. Also, I want this post to be sponsored by at least 5 brands, because that's money right there. And they spelled there. Okay, my top 10 necessities that every Texan needs in their lives. A good pair of like boots, outdoor boots, some kind of boots. Like, I keep my hiking shoes. They're Columbia. They're like hiking tennis shoes in my car all the time. And then I have like 2 pairs of boots. I have a pair of cowboy boots and then like some outdoor boots. I would say a good pair of shoes like that. A really good hat, because it can get like blazing hot in Texas and humid, especially in the summer. So what did I say? Shoes, a really good hat. Taught them the necessities every Texan needs in their life. You need some good manners and patience because things run slow around here, and you better not be rude. So that's 3, good manners and patience. You need a Kamal. If you don't know what it is, it like cooks tortillas. You gotta have you one of those. So that's what I said: the shoes, the patience. What else? I said the hat. I said the Kamal. You need a cast iron, and you need to learn how to cook on it. Like, oh my goodness. What else? That's 5. What do I think that every Texan needs? The ability to write a good thank you note. To be able to whip a casserole or something out of nothing. That's, what, 7? That's all I can think of right now. What would I say that people need? Those are probably my top. Okay, we're just gonna leave it at 7. 24, I hope I'm not too late, but I want to know how and if your academic schooling and training created in you the desire to write out your myriad of experiences throughout the state. I know who said this one. He's actually was a professor for a while, and he was my TA in college. So what did it say again? Hold on. I hope I'm not too late, but I want to know how and if your academic schooling and training created in you the desire to write out your myriad. I would say yes. So for those who don't know, I graduated from Stephen F. Austin State University out in East Texas. No, it's not in Austin. And I double majored in history and political science and have a minor in gender studies. And I went to college as a pre-med biochem major. SFA had just started the program, and then I ended up switching. And I switched to the history and political science. And I would say my academic schooling definitely created this desire, especially taking a lot of gender studies like history and sociology classes. Like, I'd always been fascinated in history and learning about culture and learning about people, and I think I get it a lot from my family. My dad was a history major in college for a little while until he switched to criminal justice and worked in the criminal justice system for years until he passed away, worked with juveniles. But I would say, like, I was always fascinated in my family, and I remember taking like Texas history in the 4th grade with Mr. Q, Mr. Quisenberry, and I was like obsessed with that class, and then took it again in middle school. Like, you have to take it twice in the state of Texas. And then I remember going off to college, and I had Professor McDonald. He's since passed away, and he was like an expert on Texas history. Like, wrote a lot of the textbooks that the McGraw-Hill textbooks, like, got to write chapters and stuff in the textbooks that a lot of the state of Texas was using at the time, and like books that I grew up using. But it wasn't probably until I had her name was Dr. Cooper, for like some history classes and then some political science classes too. But like, we would talk about women in like history, and that's when I really started getting fascinated. And like, I remember I took a presidency class where we learned about the first ladies, and getting to see the stories behind is what really kind of made me want to do. And then I started the whole Southern portraits, and then when I just started getting opportunities to travel around Texas, I just became fascinated, because I think everyone has a story, and especially being from a state that is so diverse or whatever, that like, it really, like, that made me want to learn about everyone's culture, and wanted to make me learn about the history, and then like just my own history in general too. Like, I've mentioned a lot on my blog about how my mom's uncle was the first black agriculture pilot in the state of Mississippi, how my aunt was the first African American to go to her elementary school, or how my grandpa did stuff in the civil rights, or I'm trying to think of what it, like, we have some pretty, one of my great aunts, her husband who just passed away, he is from Mississippi, and when the Civil Rights Act came down, and within it you had to do fair housing and all of that, he was working for HUD at the time, and he was one of the people for the state of Mississippi that helped make sure that fair housing was going down and people were not being discriminated because of their race. Like, I could go on and on telling you stories about my family and some of the things that it's mostly on my mom's side. I don't know enough on my dad's side yet. The theory is, and I learned in high school, I had to do my last name's French, and I had to do we did like what do you call those, like oh my goodness, what is the word, like a living, the museum, like the wax museum type things. And I was Eliza the slave, and I just remember the line where I would get on the ground, my baby, and I escaped with Harriet Tubman under the Underground Railroad, and I would go, no sir, never was I caught. Literally, that's the only part I remember, with this nappy-headed baby doll. But she escaped to Canada, like in Quebec, and I'd always heard stories that my dad's side of the family comes from Quebec, and I could never figure out how. It makes sense now that a lot of slaves, when they were escaping under the Underground Railroad, were going all the way up to Canada, because going to the north, they were still being captured in thrown back into slavery. And so like, and it's things like that that you don't necessarily, I want to know the why behind it. And so so to answer your question, Nathan, since I know this was you, I would say yes, my academic schooling nurtured, yes. Okay, 25. What's one thing you'd say to a person not from Texas? What's one thing I say to a person not from Texas? Well, if you were coming to visit, I'd say, welcome, howdy, do you need any recommendations? But one thing who asked me that? One thing I would say to a person not from Texas, that it's a beautiful, diverse state, and don't let the media shape your perception of what Texas is, because Texas is beautiful. And I don't just mean like landscape wise, like culturally, economically, like I want to die here. Like, it's great. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous. Actually, funny enough, story really quick, because I always have a story for everything, or I know somebody for everything. A couple of months back when I was in El Paso, I met a guy that works for the public radio in Iceland. And we were just chatting, and he was trying to figure out something and how to get to his Airbnb. And he had this big, like, military bag, duffel type bag, that was going to be all of his stuff for, like, the few months that he was backpacking around the U.S., interviewing pop punk bands, and he wanted to know if I knew and if I was from El Paso. And I made a joke, and it was like the day before I was trying to figure out the rental car situation so I could go hike Guadalupe Peak. If you haven't seen that vlog, it's on this YouTube. You can find it. And so I made the joke about, if I die in the mountain, it's okay. I'm going to die in Texas. And his head just like jerked, and it was like so morbid to him. And I was like, you don't understand the Texas culture and being obsessed with Texas and glad that you were born here. So we had a whole interview, and I never went to go search it to see if I ended up on public radio in Iceland. But he like starts pulling out all his equipment and starts interviewing me, and it was kind of the coolest thing. But yeah, I hope you got to learn a little bit about me in the blog. If you have any more questions or ever want to know anything else, just leave it below. Maybe one of these days I'll do, I know I've gotten some asks to do like some tips and tricks for Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, blogging, all that kind of stuff, but I am nowhere near an expert. Like, there's somebody, like a lot of that stuff you can Google, and if not, you can shell out your money and waste it in, there are tons of people who will sell you an e-course when really you're just making them money because it's a circle jerk. But y'all have a great rest of your whatever day this goes up.